So as you can see, I'm keeping my distance, but I'm able to support the Buzzwole with the Cotton Guard and the Pollen Puff. Now without this healing, the Buzzwole does not win this fight. My team is not able to win, and we get a team wipe there. We get a team wipe.
Don't use other goals. We'll lose. We will definitely lose.
Let's talk about winning from behind when you are playing in solo queue lobbies. This is a hard topic to cover, but I'm going to give you 5 tips. Now, when you are playing in the solo queue, normally this is what happens. 60% of the time, the game's like fairly evenly contested early. 20% of the time, your team steamrolls, and then 20% of the time, your team is getting steamrolled, right? It's that 20% of the time where a lot of people will they'll forfeit, they'll put surrender votes, they'll start pinging each other, they get really tilted and annoyed with each other. And the issue with this is that compounds your loss, right? Because you've got to stay composed, you've got to work with the team, and this is easier said than done. Remember, you are going to lose 100% of the games you surrender or you decide to tilt and not help your team. So with that in mind, let's try and work on that minute 20%. How can we turn these losses into wins? Tip number 1, don't stress. Don't ping your team, just stay calm. Remember, there is always a win con in Pokemon Unite. Okay, especially you're going to see in this game, we've got an Aegislash. He is an ultra class, so he's honestly not very experienced to the game, right? He's got you heard at the start, he said Eldegoss is, we're going to lose, when Eldegoss is probably S tier or, very strong A tier pick and has got a win percent of over 50%, I think, since the game's release. He's one of the best picks in the entire game. So clearly a bit of inexperience there, and he's in the top lane by himself. And you can see at the moment he's died and he's griefing the jungle. So in the bottom lane, there was a 3v3. He's died, and now he's griefing our jungle, and our jungle took our farm. So you can see this is not going well for me and my laning partner, right? We're already behind as a bottom lane, and we're trying to do our best here, right? We're trying to keep our goal zone on as many points as possible, so when it comes to that objective, they don't just put in a 20 score and get that first objective for free. Right? So we've got to make sure we're putting our team in the best position possible in that respect. But tip number 1, don't stress, don't ping people, just stay calm because there is always going to be a win con. Now, tip number 2 is don't die to contest any farm. Don't try and push, right? You can see the Buzzwole's kind of going in here for a kill. We're a bit behind, we're a bit outnumbered, and I use my X speed to try and get away here because I just don't want to feed them any more experience, right? So honestly, not too great, but remember, tip 1 is you can't stress, you've got to stay calm, you can't ping the enemy like my team is doing here.
Eldegoss, did you find yourself useless yet?
Okay, so you can see he's kind of flaming Eldegoss, the character. He's not really flaming me, but, that doesn't help when someone's on the microphone just, like, kind of saying, we're not going to do well because we've got an Eldegoss, right? It's like we've got to have a little bit of positivity there, right? I think it's an absolute must-have. So I'm trying to support my Buzzwole here as well as I can. I've got the Cotton Guard and the Pollen Puff. We're trying to get some value out of this here. I think our team's pushing a little bit, silly. I can't really support if we're going to go that deep. So I get a score and I make sure I can get away safely. Again, I'm just trying not to die. But it kind of looks like I'm going to have to give up this bottom lane. Again, this goes back to tip 2. Don't die to over push. Don't die to get some farm unnecessarily, right? That was just extreme burst that got me there. That blizzard damage from Ninetales, absolutely massive with the Glaceon. So important, don't stress, don't ping, and don't die to push or contest any farm. Which leads me into tip number 3, is that when you are behind, you need to let the enemy push and overcommit.
Shall we surrender? As predicted, when there is Eldegoss, we'll definitely lose.
Okay, so as you can hear, my teammate is a little bit tilted there, which is honestly, it's normal, right? It's a normal reaction from people to do. When you're behind, you get a little bit emotional, which is totally fine. But you've got to remember that is not going to help your team win, especially when they're just quick 10-minute games. It's easy to get bogged down and go, this one's a write-off. let me display some of my emotion here, and we'll move on to the next game. However, you've got to remember there is a win con, and you can win these games. You've just got to stay in check with some of your emotions. So I'm going to leverage this tip number 3 here, which is we can't overcommit. We've got to let the enemy push, and then we commit to a fight. Now, this is typically going to happen when they are pushing your second tier, when it is 5-minute mark, when you've got a jump pad, which you're going to see right here. Okay, their team is pushing hard. Now, look, they completely break this goal zone. But I'm not worried because, look, we've got the jump pad and we're getting some catch-up experience. This is huge. This experience you get for killing them when they're high level and you're not high level is absolutely massive XP. Absolutely massive XP. So that's a big, big turning point for our team. Even though they've broken the top goal, our team is completely back in this because the enemy has overpushed and we have punished that. So that's one of the ways you can get some catch up. Okay. The second way is, I love this little play here, is when there's a top Regieleki, you look to score bottom. Because score XP is a thing as well, and it also helps your team not get too far behind with the score. So again, we've got that score, and now they're going to push the Regieleki, which kind of means that we're tempting the enemy team to over push, right? Which is good, because even though they can get a lot of value, you just have to defend it well. Okay, now I'm personally not a fan of fighting this Regieleki up here. I think we should draw it almost to our base goal because we've got that jump pad, and we want them to overcommit. We want them to be on our side of the map as much as possible. But we've taken the fight there. We're not going to get as much value as we could have because now we can't chase them as deep because by the time we get there and do the damage, they're back on their base. So not too great for us there. Okay, tip number 4, don't surrender, trust the win con and do some positive pings for your team. It's straightforward. It's like you are going to lose 100% of the games you surrender. And you're also going to tilt your team a little bit when you put up a surrender vote because it's like, wow, we've got someone on our team who's literally just given up. And so it's like, wow, we're probably not going to win anyway. It screws with everyone mentally, right? So avoid putting that surrender vote up. Trust your win con, work with your team, and throw out some positive pings, right? Try and get people to think that, hey, look, we can do this, right? We can actually win this game. And tip number 5, as we lead into the Ray, is please don't back cap at Ray. Yes, you're behind on score, but you need to trust that you can win the fight and get the scores at the Ray.
Impossible with other goals. Unless we are lucky, we might win, because the other goals cannot help us to fight at all.
Okay, so I'm trying to counteract some of that negativity with a little bit of a you can do it ping, or let's keep pushing to the end, because we need to keep pushing to the end, right? And then this all is going to tie back to remember your role at the Ray fight. Okay, if you are a healer, you are healing your team. If you're a damage dealer, do some damage, right? If you're the brawler, get in there and get amongst the fight. Okay, our team actually doesn't have a tank. We've got 2 brawlers, a mage support, a healer, and a ranged offense. Now you can see our team is in a world of hurt here. We've got the enemy team have position at the Ray. A Regieleki is walking into our base goal zone. What is our potential win con here? Right, we need to slow it down, and you've got to have some agile thinking here. Firstly, you can't have someone defending that Regieleki, because that means if the enemy have 5 people in the Ray pit and you have 4, you're already behind, so you're going to lose. So you've got to try and get some vision on the enemy and be safe. So maybe it's nice to have someone in the jungle, but typically you want to see if they're at the Ray pit. We can see on the map that there's a couple at the Ray pit and there's one respawning, so if there's someone backcapping, that means that we have got the numbers advantage and they're only going to get 100 score from that Regieleki walking in, which is totally fine because that's the same result as if it walked into a second tier. And everyone lets the Regieleki walk into the second tier. So just remember that. If it walks into the base, it's not a big deal unless their entire team is on board with it. So don't stress too much. Now, if their team is going to overcommit, which they're going to be tempted to if that Regieleki walks in, you kill them, or you rip the Ray and you try and get your score in, but you need to try and get a kill or two on them. So we engage the fight here, and honestly, you're going to see in this next minute and a half why Eldegoss is probably the only reason we managed to win this, right? You can see we're trying to take on like a 2v4 there with the Eldegoss and the Buzzwole. I'm giving as much healing as I can. The Cinderace is back capping, and our Sylveon didn't get the Unite off in the Ray fight. And we've also got the Aegislash struggling to get in and amongst the fight, right? So I've got the healing. But this is only possible because I'm able to use that Pollen Puff to kind of, you know, do some poke damage in the bushes, but also get away, right? So I'm using that Pollen Puff to force the enemies out of position while I'm able to get some healing and stay safe. As well as that, I'm maintaining vision. So our Aegislash goes to Backcat, doesn't help in the fight whatsoever, and ends up dying, right? Now, because it's pretty much just a couple left, Buzzwole and I, we had to stop that Trevenant from scoring, and as soon as we stop that score and we see our team up, we have to run back into the center. Now, this is intense because their teams are waiting for us. They don't need to do this race, so we need to pick off kills. Now, I can't get in and amongst this fight. I have to keep my distance and healing support my Buzzwole. So as you can see, I'm keeping my distance, but I'm able to support the Buzzwole with the Cotton Guard and the Pollen Puff. Now, without this healing, the Buzzwole does not win this fight. My team is not able to win, and we get a team wipe there. We get a team wipe, and you can see I run towards the second tier because only one is going to respawn in time, and he must stop the two people at base. So I'm able to get my 100 off in this second tier. Absolutely massive win. I've done everything I can in that lobby to try and get that win from behind, and it's worked. Okay, and it worked because I picked a healer, which complemented my laning Buzzwole, and luckily the Buzzwole did amazingly in that Rayquaza fight. So we've turned that loss into a win, and you can see the value of all of the healing that the Eldegoss did that game. So if this is helping you in some of your games, let me know, drop a like, drop a comment. I want to hear your thoughts on this, and hopefully you can take these 5 tips into your lobbies to win some more solo queue games. Good luck everyone, climb hard, grind hard, and may the luck be in your favor.